Tariffs have been, frankly, the best things that's ever happened to our country.
Without tariffs, what would you do? You know what? Everybody would be bankrupt. Everybody. The whole country would be bankrupt.
If we lose that case, it's possible we're going to have to do the best we can in paying it back. I don't know how that's going to be done very easily.
We hold that IEEPA does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. We'll keep reading. That is The First Blush, authored by the Chief Justice John Roberts.
Trump just suffered one of his biggest failures of his second term after centering the entirety of his economic and foreign agenda around tariffs. The Supreme Court just ripped that unilateral power away from him, at least for now. Before we address how they may come back, let's take our victory lap. The justices, divided 6-3, when do you see that? Held that Trump's aggressive approach to tariffs on products entering the United States from across the world was not permitted under a 1977 law called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA. Justices Roberts, Gorsuch, and Barrett voted with the liberals in the majority. And of course, you'll note that Gorsuch and Barrett were Trump appointees. IEEPA allows the president to regulate imports and exports, but does not mention tariffs anywhere, which is what the court drew on for their ruling. That opens the door for other vehicles if and when Trump works to re-implement them. Here's which tariffs are going away, at least for now. The decision does not affect all of Trump's tariffs, leaving in place ones he imposed on steel and aluminum using different laws, for example, but it upends his tariffs in two categories. One is country by country or reciprocal tariffs, which range from 34% for China to a 10% baseline for the rest of the world. The other is a 25% tariff Trump imposed on some goods from Canada, China, and Mexico for what the administration said was their failure to curb the flow of fentanyl. Now, we'll note two ways Trump can reimpose tariffs are with Section 232 and Section 301 of US trade law. You all know that, you love it. The first allows for tariffs when in the interest of national security. The latter allows tariffs to be imposed over unfair trade practices. Though it was not explicitly addressed in the SCOTUS ruling, the Treasury is expected to have to issue refunds. Hundreds of companies have already sued to recuperate their funds. More on that aspect. So far, the US Treasury has collected roughly $240 billion in tariff revenue since April 2nd, 2025, a date President Trump labeled Liberation Day as he imposed his sweeping tariffs. The research firm Capital Economics estimated that if the Treasury is forced to issue refunds, the cost would run about $120 billion or 0.5% of gross domestic product. Trump has yet to publicly give his response. He's set to give that as we're live now, but he was in a meeting when the news dropped, and we have this behind the scenes reaction for you. But before we get to that, I put a lot out there and I want to give you a chance to weigh in, Yaz. What do you think?
Yeah, we love to see the Supreme Court finally responding to something that Trump has been doing, something that has ever since he implemented all these tariffs, people have been saying that these are illegal tariffs or that he shouldn't be allowed to do all this. The sweeping nature of the tariffs was very concerning. He did campaign saying he was going to implement tariffs, but then when he got into office and we saw what his actual plan was, it was disastrous. And nobody did anything really at the time. Maybe they couldn't do anything until now, but we finally have this ruling. I am sad that it took this long, but also the question now is, has the damage already been done? It's been a year, like I said, right? And a year of these really, really harsh tariffs is a long time. And yeah, there's the damage that's been done regarding our relationships with practically every other nation on this planet, because he tariffed practically every nation on this planet, including many of our allies. But then there's also the damage that it's done here at home. How much money has been lost by the American people who have been paying these tariffs? Also, businesses, small businesses in particular, have struggled and suffered significantly. A lot of them have had to close because of these tariffs, because the prices of importing the goods that they need to run their businesses have skyrocketed. And so they had to raise their prices, and then the customers don't want to pay the prices. And so even if we somehow get all this money back, that that has been paid into these tariffs, that money isn't going to go back into these businesses, a lot of which, as I said, have already had to close down. And they're definitely not going to go back into my pocket, right? And we are the ones who have been paying these tariff prices. And so good that I guess it's not going to continue to go forward from this point, but hopefully we can recover from the damage that has been done.
Yeah, I mean, the issue for me is that with these refunds to these corporations who passed the costs on to us, they didn't absorb those costs. Our prices went up, like you said. That's more money out of our pockets. We get nothing. Trump was asked recently about his proposed tariff rebate check, those $2,000 checks he flaunted every once in a while to really sell these as something positive for working people. He was asked about it recently, and his response was literally, "When did I do that?" All right. So what we see is the corporations pass those costs on to us. Those prices went up. That's more money out of our pocket. We get nothing, and they might get a refund from the government. So yet again, we're seeing another massive transfer of wealth from the working class to the ultra wealthy and to corporations. And those same ultra wealthy and corporations are telling us that no, we can't afford higher taxes. So the burden always falls on working people in this country. And we have an update on Trump's response. He was in a closed door meeting with a bipartisan group of governors. He reportedly asked an advisor who handed him a slip of paper. He said, "So it's a loss then." Trump reportedly called the SCOTUS ruling a disgrace and said he has a plan B, per News Nation. Trump was said to have held his composure well enough, but was seething inside. And then there was another report I saw on CNN earlier that said that he lashed out. He was using expletives. He was saying, we got to do something about those blanking courts. The idea is buttressed not only by everything we know about Trump, but also the fact that he cut the Q&A portion of that meeting and left the room. So Yaz, he's angry. And I also am curious, what do you think this does to his State of the Union speech? We're just a couple days away from State of the Union, and that was going to be a big part of it.
It's gonna have to be. And I've kind of stopped watching his State of the Union addresses because, I know I need to stay engaged, especially doing this job. I'm supposed to pay attention to these things, but really, he doesn't say anything of value ever. He just goes up there and he lies about things. And then we have to be like, oh, he lied about that. Like, we know that he's lying about these things. So there's nothing good that he can say about the tariffs or about the economic impact that they have had, because the thing that he campaigned on was that he was going to lower prices for average Americans, and everything he has done since becoming president has systematically raised prices for average everyday Americans. And he's raising the prices while saying, no, your prices are going down. You just don't realize it, or it's a lag effect. Like, whatever he has to say to continue to string people along is what he's going to say. And I think we can just expect more of that at his State of the Union address. That's the only way that he's able to even address the public now, it's just by lying to them, because he has nothing good to say. If you really wanted to be honest, he would address the economy, he would address the tariffs, and he would address the fact that, yeah, they did raise your prices. And even at the times when he did concede that he was going to be raising prices on Americans, he was like, it's a little bit of pain for a long-term gain. Where is the gain? Where is it even coming? Sure, it's been a year. Maybe that's not a long enough time to see any kind of real long-term gains. But like, what's the plan? Are we rebuilding our infrastructure, or are we just like continuing to prop up our entire economy with AI, which like nobody wants anyway?